Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Bona here, Overtime Athletes. I figured I'd make a video for you guys, for some of you guys who can't essentially invest in Athlete Built Savage, which is my new program. You know, I constantly like to give you everything so that you can have it on your own, regardless. And what I want to do is, essentially what happened was I built Athlete Built, right? You guys know this last year if you guys have been following me. And what happened was I developed that program, I got really lean, I got the athletic physique, and I looked like an athlete and I could still perform like one. But what I noticed was as I did that cut during Sculpt, a lot of the benefits started to reduce. So each one had its own problem, right? When it was brick, you kind of gained that fat loss. So while you gained all that weight, maybe some of your performance reduced. If you did Excel, it was all about performance, and maybe you lost that physique or lost some of your muscle. And as you did Sculpt, you lost some of that strength, some of that performance, because you went on that reduction of calories. So what I did was I went into the books and I went extremely hard on trying to develop a program that's accumulation of all of them, where you can gain that physique that you want, that muscle that you want, that strength that you want, while having the physique that you want, while cutting, while doing all those things. So that's how I came out with Athlete Built Savage. To me, it's one of my most, I kind of basically threw the kitchen sink at this one, and it's kind of an all-in-one, and that's why I'm offering the nutrition, the cardio, everything with this actual program, because I believe that whether you're a big-time prospect or a weekend warrior looking to stay athletic, this is the ultimate program. So what I want to do is I kind of want to go over each phase with you guys today, and I'll try to run through this quickly because I can go long-winded. But each phase is essentially broken down into, you know, parameters of your actual workouts and what we're focusing on for that block of training. Now, these typical phases can go anywhere from 2 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on where that athlete was. For the actual program, for the sake of trying to create it for all you guys, these are 1 month long. So it's usually 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So for the first phase, our workouts are broken down into these sections, and these are the emphasis that we're placing on each workout. So in the beginning of the first phase, our big focus on structure and flexibility will be mobilization. We do this through static stretching. What I want to do is I want to reduce muscular imbalances, increase range of motion. So really focusing on muscles that are commonly tight on a lot of you guys or a lot of us athletes, whether it be our hips, something within our shoulders, really focusing on slowing it down, being able to elongate those muscles so that we could go through full ranges of motion and receive the benefits of reducing our muscular imbalances, bringing that body into more symmetry. Then we will perform, when I put dynamic here, you will perform a dynamic movement, right? And this is an athletic movement. I like to balance acceleration when it comes to linear speed, top speed, since they are two different techniques. I also like to add power, which comes in the form of plyometrics, any kind of jumping style training like that. And then agility, your change of direction, moving in multiple planes. Then what we will do is get into our strength lift. And the focus in phase one will be all about high frequency, high intensity, absolute strength. And I've tweaked some parameters that I think will be very beneficial to you guys. Overall here, we're trying to get absolute strength. And then we focus on two parameters, which is eccentric training. Again, if you guys have heard of, you guys know I like to plug triphasic training in anything I do. I'm plugging that in here, but I'm changing up the parameters a little bit. And then we perform a limited range of motion. So based on physics or the size of certain muscles in certain movements, we notice that each movement has a particular area that has a weak point. To give you an example, the bench press has one when it comes to the lockout. Why? Because not just are we moving farther away from our mass, we're calling upon more triceps, which is a smaller muscle than our pecs. So essentially, the lockout of a bench press is usually where typical people fail. And these are the things during that phase that we're gonna focus on so that we can overcome, so that when you do hit those heavy bench presses, you are complete and through the full range of motion. Finally, as far as the build section, it's going to be general prep. I call this your heavy tens, focusing on the auxiliaries and the supplemental strength to support. You're also inducing hypertrophy, so we're getting that muscle growth through this phase. Finally, for our core, we're gonna focus all about stabilization, being able to control the torso in whatever position we want. That's really what it is. Before, if you think of it like a skyscraper, before we build up, we need to build a good infrastructure, and that's really what the stabilization is during that phase. Now, moving over to phase 2, it's all about bringing symmetry to the body. So we introduce mobilization, again, through different forms, through more dynamic forms, and activation, where we're priming our body, those dormant muscles that we typically don't bring on, to be able to put ourselves in the right posture, bring symmetry to the body, and overall perform better. Again, we're gonna balance out dynamic movements as far as athletic movements, your speed, your agility, your power. Next, we're gonna get into absolute strength. Again, let me mention this as well. The reason why dynamic movement is before our power is because our higher neurological demanding movements we wanna place before our auxiliaries, before our groundwork and all that. So that's why the things such as running, jumping, sprinting, where we're all max out effort, I make sure I put them before the rest of the workout. And that's the reason why, is the higher neurological demand we place before, so that you're not fatigued performing them. Next, when we get into our strength, again, we're focusing on absolute strength. We're gonna reduce the frequency, but we're gonna keep the intensity high, keep the volume start to climb up here now a little bit as well. Our body's acclimated. I want to extract as much strength out of the body as we possibly can. Then we move over to isometric, but there's a particular way that I want to perform isometrics in a more active way. You've seen a video of me before. I talk about, instead of just pausing at a bench press, you're actually actively pressing against pins so that you extract maximal motor recruitment when you're performing that movement. Finally, hypertrophy, there's a couple different methods. I introduce heavy tens and introduce the super slow method. If you've done brick, you know during the super slow method, we're trying to decrease momentum, increase maximal contraction, increase maximal tissue tear, basically breaking down those fibers in your muscles so that we can then recover and grow back bigger. And then finally for core, it's all about actually dynamic movement now. So we're actually introducing flexion with the rectus. We're introducing extension for the erectors, the multifidus. And then we're also having rotation, because that's what athletic movement is based around. So we're actually performing those in a dynamic manner. Phase 3, finally. This is where we start to cut the calories down. We start to get the body, that physique we want, reduce all the fat, but maintain the strength, if not get stronger, and the muscle. And there's a common way that I do that with the nutrition. You can check that out in the program. But really what we do is we cut the mobilization. We focused on that the first 2 phases. Now it's all about activation, bringing those muscles and priming them for the movements that we're gonna perform for that particular day. Again, dynamic movement, but we're gonna reduce the overall volume, and then we're gonna introduce power. Now this is to me is the secret sauce, and it's what I call concentric contrast. I'm not making this up, I'm just utilizing the terms that we have within our textbooks and building it around the program that I have. So again, I went eccentric, isometric, concentric, just like triphasic training, but what I'm doing is I'm introducing a contrast method to our actual power and strength methods here. And with that, what you're gonna do is you're gonna perform a full range of motion repetition, highly focusing on that concentric portion of the lift, right? Eccentric, isometric. Eccentric is the lengthening, isometric is a transition, concentric is the shortening. During that shortening phase, the actual contraction phase, we wanna focus on an intense bout, really firing that nervous system as hard as possible. As we have that heightened nervous system from the resistance movement, we want to transfer that over to a more dynamic lift, and that's really what we're focusing on here. Finally, for the build part, this is where I really introduce all the methods I learned from working with the high-end bodybuilding coach that I hired. I think it was important for me to have that information. He introduced me to a bunch of different methods as far as trisets, as far as high intensity, as far as time sets, max repetition sets, and he introduced to me to what body parts are stimulated best by these certain things, even as far as tempo goes. So that's where I kind of unload all that in this section. And then finally, the core in this section is about integration. So we did stabilization, we did the dynamic flexion, extension, rotation. This one is going to be about integration, where it's all about integrating our and force coupling our upper and lower half so that we can efficiently transfer energy through our torso and become a better athlete. So if I'm doing a lunge, I'm doing a lunge with a twist so that I can couple that twist with that lunge pattern. And that's really, I know it's a lot, but that's really the full complexity of Athlete Built Savage. If you're interested in it, you could check out below. I've completely put together the full workout for you guys, and I've been seeing amazing results with myself and all my guys here. I appreciate you watching. Hope you can pull some from this and start to develop your own programs. If not, get that down below. Support your boy. Love y'all. Holler at you next time.